This lesson is another example of how to multiply fractions, except in this case we're actually going to be using a grid. For our first example, we're going to take 2/3 and multiply that by 1/4, and we're going to use the grid. Now it's very easy to multiply these two fractions using the strategies that we've learned earlier. Multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then reduce as necessary. But we're actually going to visually represent each of those fractions on the grid on the right. I'm going to start with 2/3. What I'm going to do with the rectangle is I'm going to divide this rectangle into thirds. Now they're not perfect, but that's good enough. So I need to shade in 2/3. I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to shade in 2 out of those 3 boxes. So there's 2/3 that's shaded. Now, I'm going to represent 1/4 going the other way. In fact, what I could do is I could turn my paper sideways and then represent or cut the grid into fourths. And I can do that by cutting it in half first, and cutting those in halves. Now I've got 4 somewhat equal size sections, and now I'm going to shade in 1/4 of those. So I'm going to shade this in just like this. So 1 out of those 4 rectangles is shaded in. Now what I end up with is a grid that's sectioned off into several different pieces. And I'll number them for you here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So what I have are 12 equal size pieces. That's what my denominator is. Now the numerator comes when I look at which pieces are shaded in twice. In other words, and I've used 2 different colors here, the blue and the green, I can take a look and see which pieces are shaded in with both blue and green. And that is this one here and this one here. So there are 2 sections or 2 pieces that are shaded in using both colors. That's my numerator. So it's 2 pieces out of 12, or 2/12. And I can reduce that further by cutting both the top and the bottom in half, and I get a final answer that's 1/6. Now if I go back to my original problem, that was 2/3 times 1/4. If I multiply my numerators, 2 times 1 is 2. My denominators, 3 times 4 is 12. You'll see that I get the same answer, 2/12, which reduces down to 1/6. Now it's not about how simple it is to multiply the numerators and denominators. It's about visually representing how to multiply these fractions using the grid. Let's do another example. In this example, we're going to take 1/5 and multiply that by 3/4. We'll get an answer to that. Let's see how we do this. Okay, using the grid, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to divide the rectangle in the first place using my 5 as the denominator. So I need to divide that into 5 equal pieces. That's not too difficult. All right, so there's 5 somewhat equal pieces. Now, according to my fraction, I have 1/5. So I'm going to shade in 1 out of those 5 equal pieces. There we go. Now, I'm going to separate the rectangle horizontally and divide that into 4 equal pieces. So I do that by cutting in half, cutting those in half, and there's 4 equal pieces. And I end up with a grid that is 4 by 5. So I have a total of 20 equal size pieces. That's my denominator. Okay. Now what I need to do on my fourths is I need to shade in 3 of those fourths. So I'll begin shading here. Go all the way across, shade 3 of the fourths. And I already said that 20 is my denominator. Now what I need to do is I need to take a look at how many of the pieces are shaded in twice with 2 colors. That would be this piece, and this piece. Those are the only two, excuse me, those are the only three that have two colors. So those are three pieces. So my numerator is 3. So my fraction is 3/20. 1/5 times 3/4 equals 3/20. And if I were to write that down here and just simply multiply using the strategies that I've learned before, our numerators, 1 times 3 is 3, and 5 times 4 is 20. So I still get the same answer as this, but I'm doing it using a grid. Now I'm going to give you an example of a grid that's already shaded in, and I'd like you to determine what two fractions are being multiplied. Here's the grid all shaded in two different ways. I'd like you to pause the video and try to figure out what two fractions are being multiplied here. Pause it now. I'll show you how I worked it out. The first thing I'm going to look at is the blue. I see that it's divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 equal pieces. That's my denominator. So let's do that in blue. My denominator for the blue is 7. Now how many of those are shaded in? It looks like it's 1 here, another one. Okay, so there's 3 of those shaded in. So my first fraction is 3/7. Now if you use the green first, that's fine too. It doesn't matter which order that you multiply them in. So 3/7 is my first one. So now I'm going to look at the green. And when I look at green, I have that separated into 1, 2, 3 equal pieces. That's my denominator there. Now how many of those are shaded in? It looks like just this first one is. So my numerator for green is 1. So it looks like I'm multiplying 3/7 times 1/3. Now, to get my final answer, I need to see how many of those pieces I have total now. It looks like I've got a 3 by 7 grid, a 3 by 7. So my denominator is 21. I've got 21 pieces now. Now we take a look at how many are shaded in with both colors, or shaded in twice. And it looks like this one, and this one. So we've got 3 of those. 3 over 21. Now, it's not reduced. That's a top and a bottom. 3 actually is the greatest common factor. So that can reduce to 1/7. Now, if I were doing it this way, 3/7 times 1/3, I see that these cancel out. So we don't even need to deal with that. And what we end up with is 1/7, looking at it diagonally this way. So that's how you multiply fractions using a grid.